A family dinner can disappear without anyone hearing it leave. First one person eats early. Then someone else eats in front of the television. Soon the food is still there, but the table is empty. In the 1950s, that table was often the center of the evening. And the dishes placed on it did more than fill stomachs. They stretched paychecks, rescued leftovers, and gave ordinary families the feeling that for one more night, there was enough. Some of these meals cost almost nothing. One became a family tradition after beginning in a corporate test kitchen. And the last could pull everyone into the kitchen before a single name was called. But first came a dish that could turn a tough old chicken into something almost elegant. Chicken fricassee began with patience. Pieces of chicken were browned in butter, then lifted from the pan. Flour went into the drippings. Broth followed slowly. A little milk or cream softened the sauce. Onions went in, maybe peas, maybe carrots. Then the chicken returned beneath a lid and simmered until the meat loosened from the bone and the sauce became pale, smooth, and rich. The name sounded French. The ingredients did not. That was the beauty of it. Chicken fricassee was thrift, wearing a nice dress. A cook did not need an expensive bird to make the table feel dignified. She needed heat, time, and the knowledge that toughness could be transformed. By the time the pot was ready, the kitchen smelled like Sunday, even if it was only Wednesday. Beef pot pie performed the same transformation on yesterday's leftovers. A little cooked beef might not have been enough to serve again, but mixed with potatoes, carrots, peas, and brown gravy, it could become the center of a new meal. The filling went into a deep dish. Pastry covered the top. A few small cuts released the steam while the crust rose and browned in the oven. Children remembered the moment a fork broke through it. First came the steam, then the smell of butter, beef, and gravy. The meal refused to let yesterday feel tired. What might have looked like scraps became an event. Sometimes that effort was no more complicated than placing pastry over what remained and giving yesterday a different name. Creamed tuna on toast had no golden crust and no elegant name. It did not need either one. For households observing a meatless Friday, or for families approaching the end of the grocery money, one small can of tuna could still become supper. Butter and flour formed a white sauce. Milk made it smooth. Tuna and peas gave it substance. Then the mixture was spooned over buttered toast. The bread softened beneath the sauce. The peas added sweetness. The tuna made the plate feel complete. It was inexpensive, mild, and filling. More importantly, it never apologized for being simple. Creamed tuna on toast was not trying to impress anyone. It was solving a problem. Several people were hungry. There was one can in the cupboard, and somehow there still needed to be enough. Welsh Rarebit took something even simpler and made it feel rich. Toast was covered with a thick sauce of sharp cheddar, milk or beer, Worcestershire sauce, and dry mustard. Sometimes the plate went beneath the broiler until the cheese bubbled. Bacon or tomato could appear on top if the kitchen had them, but neither was necessary. The pleasure was in the contrast. Crisp bread beneath hot, glossy cheese. A little bite from the mustard, A little depth from the sauce. Welsh Rarebit proved that richness was not always a matter of price. Sometimes it was simply heat, texture, and the decision to make ordinary bread feel considered. Baked macaroni and cheese made that promise with more drama. Elbow pasta was folded into a sauce of butter, flour, milk, and sharp cheddar. More cheese covered the surface. Buttered crumbs created the final layer. Inside the oven, the center stayed creamy while the edges became brown and crisp. The corners were the prize. That was where cheese, crumbs, and heat formed a salty, golden crust that children watched from across the table. Everyone knew which corner was closest. Everyone knew which sibling might reach it first. The dish was inexpensive, but it never felt small. Pasta carried the weight. Cheese supplied the pleasure. And the browned surface made the entire casserole feel larger than its ingredients. The old kitchen did not begin with abundance. It created the feeling of it. Salisbury steak made ground beef feel like a real dinner plate. The meat was mixed with breadcrumbs, egg, onion, and seasoning, then shaped into oval patties. They were browned in a skillet and simmered in mushroom or onion gravy until tender. Beside mashed potatoes and peas, the patties looked almost like small steaks. That illusion mattered. A pound of hamburger could be stretched, shaped, sauced, and placed at the center of the plate with dignity. Salisbury steak did not hide its thrift. It organized it. The gravy carried flavor into the potatoes. The breadcrumbs helped the beef feed more people. The shape made the meal feel deliberate. It was not a steakhouse dinner, but on an ordinary weeknight, it could feel close enough. And this was the meal mentioned at the beginning, the one that could stretch a small amount of meat across an entire family. Hamburger gravy over mashed potatoes made no attempt to look like steak. Ground beef was browned and broken into small pieces. Flour went into the fat. Milk followed slowly until the skillet held a thick, peppery gravy. Then it was poured over mashed potatoes. The gravy settled into every ridge and filled the small well pressed into the center. There might not have been enough beef to place a large portion on every plate, but flour, milk, and potatoes helped the meat travel farther. The result was hot, filling, and complete. It did not remove the problem outside the kitchen. It softened the room around it. Beef and macaroni achieved the same thing in one pot. In many New England homes, a version of it was called American chop suey. Elsewhere, it was simply beef and macaroni. Ground beef cooked with onion and green pepper. Tomato sauce or canned tomatoes went in. Elbow macaroni softened in the same pot, absorbing the meat, seasoning, and tomato. Every household adjusted the recipe. Some added cheese, some used garlic, some made it sweeter, others considered sugar an unforgivable mistake. Those disagreements were part of the meal. A family recipe needed repetition more than age. This was our version. This was the pot our mother used. This was the flavor we would compare with every other bowl for the rest of our lives. Meatloaf may have been the finest piece of kitchen engineering on the table. Ground beef was mixed with breadcrumbs, egg, milk, onion, and seasoning. Each ingredient had a job. Breadcrumbs stretched the meat. Egg held everything together. Milk helped keep it tender. Onion added sweetness. Ketchup brown sugar and mustard formed a glossy glaze across the top. By late afternoon, the smell had traveled through the house. The edges became firm. The glaze turned sticky. Inside, the loaf remained soft. Cold slices became sandwiches the next day. A good supper often carried tomorrow inside it. For people who remembered real scarcity, waste was not merely expensive, it felt wrong. Then came Jell-O salad, bright, trembling, and almost impossible to explain to someone who did not grow up with it. Fruit, marshmallows, shredded carrots, cottage cheese, nuts, or celery might be suspended inside a ring of colored gelatin. Some versions were sweet, some were savory, some seemed uncertain which one they wanted to be. Today they can look strange. In the 1950s, they looked modern. A reliable refrigerator made molded gelatin easier, more dependable, and far more impressive. The cook poured the mixture into a decorative mold, waited for it to set, then turned it onto a plate and hoped the whole structure would release cleanly. When it worked, the salad stood on the table like a small domestic trophy. It showed what a modern kitchen could do, and beneath all that color and movement was the same message delivered by every casserole and gravy boat. There is enough. Come inside. Take your seat. Whatever happened today, you are home now. Chicken and biscuits gave that message to leftovers. A small amount of cooked chicken might not have been enough to serve again by itself, but it could be folded into gravy with peas or carrots and poured into a baking dish. Rounds of biscuit dough covered the surface. Inside the oven, the tops became golden, while the bottoms absorbed the gravy. The result looked nothing like yesterday's remains. A skilled home cook changed the story of food. Leftover chicken became chicken and biscuits. The family was not being asked to repeat Sunday. Sunday had been rescued and returned in a different form. Tuna noodle casserole was one of the clearest signs that the American kitchen was entering a new age. Egg noodles, canned tuna, peas, condensed mushroom soup, and crushed potato chips came together in one baking dish. The noodles made it filling. The soup created a dependable sauce. The tuna added substance. The chips gave the top a salty crunch children remembered. Everything came from a can, a box, or a bag. For the person producing dinner every evening, convenience could feel like relief. Dinner was not an occasional creative project. It was a deadline that returned 7 nights a week. A can of soup did not eliminate the cook. It simply made the deadline easier to meet. Hamburger rice casserole offered another kind of relief. Ground beef, onion, celery, rice, condensed soup, and water went into a baking dish. Then the oven took over. The cook could leave the stove. She could wash a bowl, help a child fold laundry, or sit down for a few minutes while the rice absorbed the sauce and the meat flavored the pan. 1 pound of beef became a complete casserole. The dish was not elegant, it was dependable, and on a busy evening, dependability could feel more valuable than elegance. The old family dinner may look effortless in photographs. It was not. Convenience gave time back to the person carrying most of that work. corned beef hash belonged to an older kind of economy. It began with what remained from a boiled dinner. Corned beef, potatoes, maybe onion. Everything was diced and pressed into a hot cast-iron skillet. Then came the hardest instruction: leave it alone. The bottom needed time to form a crust. Stir too early and the potatoes would never become crisp. Wait, and the surface turned deep brown while the inside remained soft. The hash was flipped in rough sections so more edges could meet the iron. A fried egg might go on top if there were eggs in the house. The best part was the dark crust created by patience. The only extra ingredient was the discipline to wait. American goulash filled a pot instead of a skillet. Ground beef, onion, peppers, tomatoes, paprika, Worcestershire sauce, and macaroni cooked together until the pasta absorbed the sauce. The dish reheated well. It could feed a crowd. It could change according to whatever was available. And every family believed its version was the correct one. Tradition did not always begin in a distant village or arrive on a handwritten card. Sometimes it started in a magazine, sometimes on the side of a package, sometimes with a neighbor saying, "Try this." A family cooked it again and again. Years later, it no longer felt borrowed. It felt inherited. But leftovers were only half the story. The next major change in the American kitchen began inside test kitchens and marketing departments. Cans, boxes, and frozen packages arrived with recipes designed to make the products useful. To a tired home cook, they did not look like an invasion. They looked like help. The problem came later. At first, the can saved time. Then the box saved labor. Eventually, the individual tray made gathering optional. Before that shift was complete, the old kitchen still knew how to use parts of the animal that modern shoppers would later ignore. Beef tongue with horseradish sauce was one of those meals. The tongue simmered for hours with onion, bay leaf, and seasoning. When tender, the outer skin was removed and the meat was sliced thin. It could be served warm with a sharp horseradish sauce or chilled for sandwiches. Modern diners often hesitate because the cut still looks like what it is. Many earlier households saw something different. They saw an unaffordable piece of meat that rewarded patience. The meat became tender and horseradish cut through its richness. What appeared difficult became nourishing in experienced hands. The less fashionable parts of the animal were not automatically discarded. They were problems worth solving. Creamed peas and new potatoes came from a different source of thrift and pleasure. The first harvest of spring. Small new potatoes were boiled until tender. Fresh peas were shelled by hand. A simple white sauce of butter, flour, and milk brought them together. The dish had no dramatic crust and no heavy seasoning. Its beauty came from timing. The potatoes were young. The peas were sweet. The garden had started producing again. This was the season turning in a bowl. Certain dishes returned only when the ingredients did. That waiting gave food meaning. Creamed peas and new potatoes belonged to a calendar that could be eaten. Then came the dish promised at the beginning. The family tradition that did not begin with a grandmother, but inside a corporate test kitchen. Green bean casserole combined green beans, condensed mushroom soup, and fried onions in one baking dish. The recipe was simple enough to remember and dependable enough for almost any kitchen. It appeared on holiday tables at church suppers, funeral receptions, and neighborhood gatherings. It is easy to dismiss it as corporate food. Its origin was commercial. Its emotional life was not. A company supplied the formula. A family supplied the labor, repetition, and meaning. After the same casserole appeared at the same holiday table for 20 years, nobody cared where the recipe had first been printed. They cared that its smell meant the family was gathering again. A product entered the house. Human hands made it personal. Salmon croquettes performed a similar transformation with a can from the pantry. Canned pink salmon was mixed with egg, onion, cracker crumbs, salt, and pepper. The soft bones were often mashed into the mixture rather than removed. Nothing useful needed to be wasted. The salmon was shaped into patties and fried until the outside became dark gold. The crust gave way to a moist, savory center. A squeeze of lemon sharpened the flavor. One can became several portions, stretched by crumbs and shaped by hand. The old kitchen asked a better question than "What are we missing? What can this become?" A can became croquettes. A roast became hash. Old bread became dessert. Corned beef and cabbage filled the house with a smell that was impossible to ignore. A brisket simmered slowly with spices. Near the end, cabbage, carrots, and potatoes entered the same broth. The vegetables absorbed the salt and richness of the meat. Nothing sat on the plate as decoration. Every part belonged to the same pot. For many Irish American and working class families, the dish carried stories of migration, adaptation, and making an inexpensive cut feed several people. It did not pretend the meat had begun tender. It used time to make tenderness possible. Smothered pork chops brought that transformation into a skillet. Bone-in chops were coated with seasoned flour and browned. Onions softened in the drippings. Broth and flour became gravy. Then the pork returned to the pan and simmered until the meat relaxed beneath the onions. A cheap chop could be dry and stubborn if cooked too quickly. In gravy, it became tender. The sauce spread across rice or potatoes and carried the flavor farther than the meat could travel alone. This was working-class comfort food in its clearest form, a difficult cut, a patient cook, and enough gravy for everyone. The meal did not erase a hard week. It gave the family a warm place to set it down. Mashed potatoes were where many of those gravies landed. They were not a small side pushed against the edge of the plate. They were the soft white center of the meal. Potatoes were peeled, boiled, drained while still steaming, and mashed with butter, warm milk, and salt. Then came the familiar gesture. A spoon pressed into the center. A well appeared. Gravy filled it. Children remembered that well because it never changed. The meat might be different, the vegetables might come from a can or a garden, but the gravy still had a place to go. Comfort is often built from small forms of predictability. The same bowl, the same chair, the same person asking whether anyone wanted more. Then television changed the direction of the chairs. That may sound like a small detail. It was not. A table makes people face one another. A television makes people face the same screen. The plates could remain full and the family could remain in the same room. But their attention had moved. That was the deeper change. Not canned soup by itself, not frozen food by itself, not even the drive-through window. The real change was that dinner no longer required people to look at one another. Once attention left the table, belonging had to work harder to remain. Some meals still possessed enough sound and smell to call everyone back. Fried chicken was one of them. A whole chicken was cut into pieces and soaked in buttermilk. At supper time, each piece was coated in seasoned flour and lowered into hot fat inside a cast-iron skillet. The first piece hitting the pan was an announcement. Children heard it from another room. The smell moved through the house before the crust was fully formed. The cook watched the heat through experience. Too hot, and the outside burned before the meat cooked. Too cool, and the coating absorbed too much grease. Exact moment to turn each piece lived in the cook's eyes, ears, and hands. When it was right, the crust became dark gold and cracked at the first bite. The meat remained moist inside. A written recipe could list the ingredients. It could not completely preserve the intelligence in those hands. Apple Brown Betty used the same intelligence on ingredients that had begun to fade. Day-old bread became buttered crumbs. Tart apples were layered with brown sugar, cinnamon, and perhaps a little lemon juice or cider. Dish baked until the top browned and the apples collapsed beneath it. The surface became crisp. The fruit became soft, tart, and almost jam-like. With ice cream, it felt like a celebration. Without it, it was still generous enough for an ordinary Tuesday. Apple Brown. Betty did not hide the fact that it began with stale bread. It demonstrated that age did not make something useless. The old kitchen searched constantly for the remaining value in things. Nothing had to begin perfectly in order to become meaningful. And then there was the final meal, the one whose smell could gather a family before anyone called. Yankee pot roast began with a chuck roast, a piece of meat built from muscles that had worked hard. It was not naturally tender. It resisted hurry. The roast was coated in seasoned flour and seared until a dark crust formed. Onions went into the pot. Carrots, potatoes, celery, maybe turnip. Broth was poured around the meat. Then the lid went on, the heat dropped, and the house began to wait. Beneath the lid, heat and moisture slowly dismantled toughness. The meat loosened. The onions softened. The vegetables absorbed the broth. Flour, beef, and thyme became gravy. The transformation could not remain inside the pot because the smell traveled into every room. By mid-afternoon, the house had changed. Someone stepping through the front door knew what was waiting before removing the coat. Children drifted towards the kitchen without being asked. Adults lifted the lid even after being told to leave it alone. Pot roast created anticipation before it created a plate. That is what modern convenience still struggles to reproduce. A microwave can heat food, and a delivery driver can bring it quickly. But neither fills a house for hours with the promise that something is waiting for you. Pot roast was not the most fashionable or complicated meal of the decade, but it represented almost everything the old dinner table was trying to do. It took a difficult, inexpensive ingredient and treated it as worthy of time. It turned meat, vegetables, broth, and patience into enough food and gravy for several plates. It made the house smell occupied. Most of all, it gathered people before anyone issued an invitation. The smell did the calling. That is why these dishes remain powerful even after many have disappeared from regular kitchens. People rarely remember flavor by itself. They remember what the flavor meant. Meatloaf meant there might be sandwiches tomorrow. Chicken and biscuits meant nothing useful had been wasted. Hamburger gravy meant a thin week could still end with a full plate. Jell-O salad meant the refrigerator had made something new possible. Green bean casserole meant the holidays had returned. Pot roast meant someone had been thinking about supper for hours. Food became evidence of attention. Someone had planned, waited, and remembered who wanted the crispy corner or extra gravy. The old family table was not perfect. The work behind it was heavy, and much of that work fell on women without enough recognition or rest. Not every family was peaceful. Not every child felt safe in the chair assigned to them. The past becomes dishonest when nostalgia removes all its shadows. The lesson is not that we should return to the 1950s. The lesson is that repeated rituals shape a home. The real question is what rituals we are building now. Maybe it is Sunday pancakes, soup on rainy nights, or one dinner each week when every phone stays in another room. Maybe it is a recipe your family recognizes by smell before anyone sees the plate. A family table does not remain alive by accident. It has to be chosen. Again and again, one meal at a time. A dish cooked once can be delicious. Cooked every winter, it becomes a season. Served every birthday, it becomes a tradition. And when it was made by someone we love, it can carry that person's voice long after the kitchen has gone quiet. So think back to the home where you grew up. What meal could pull everyone into the kitchen before anyone called? And who made it? Write it in the comments. Those memories are not small. They are pieces of family history. And if this story brought back a smell, a plate, a voice, or an empty chair you still remember, subscribe to the channel. We are not simply remembering old food. We are recovering the human stories hidden inside ordinary meals. Because some of the most important history was never placed inside a museum. It lived in a skillet, a casserole dish, a chipped serving bowl, a stained recipe card, and in the smell of something cooking slowly enough to remind an entire family where home was.